Let's get to the. Oh man, that's crazy. Now that I think about it, to think that it's going to be that many games in that period of time, it's nuts, man.
Like you got to travel from Saskatchewan to Toronto.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not good. Brought to you by, let's get to the race report now, brought to you by CanTorque. And hey, maybe some of you put on the COVID-15, but hey, guess what? CanTorque did too, but it's all muscle. Because the next generation RT series low hydraulic actuators are now available. Stronger and more durable than ever. Arrange a demo at CanTorque.com. Colin Winston joins us. And Colin, lots going on in the racing world. I have to get your thoughts. Now, I guess I get it from a business standpoint. I think it's a pretty shoddy business move because had they canceled the race, then they'd refund the tickets. So they have a 2-lap race with no passing. Everybody stays in the same order they qualified, and that qualifies as the race, and people get half the points that they normally would in a full race. Like, has that happened before in F1, Grant? I don't watch as much F1 as I have the last year, of course, but like that just seems like a pretty bush league decision.
I hated it. We were busy racing on the weekend, so I didn't even get to see the race. I'll for anyone who's watching the stream, I'm going to use the air quotes, the race. Forget about, let's take safety out of the equation, because I never want to see people race or get on track when, there's a risk, obviously outside of the normal risks of racing, where the powers that be decided that it was too dangerous to carry on. The 2 laps to put things into perspective were behind a pace car. There was no racing. They paraded around, and then parked. They tried to get things going. The rain just got worse, and they said, okay, we're going to declare that race over. Here's half the points for making 2 laps behind a pace car. How do you call that a race when there was no free running, where the guys never had a chance to get out? I mean, obviously it's a disaster for Formula One. Again, taking the safety element out, I don't question the fact that they called the race. I don't question the fact that they put the driver's safety, and in turn the fan safety, because if some of these cars go off, at certain parts of the track where you can, like Sergio Perez lost control of his car before the race even started, heading out to the grid, he lost control. So, you could have lost the car anywhere. I don't question that whatsoever. Safety is always the first concern. But calling that a race where, some people spent over 10 hours at that track. I watched a video that showed, various people to get into the parking lot took up to 3 hours driving through mud, to get parked, to get to your seats, to, get situated. Really, really very bad optics, to say the least, for Formula One here. They're moving on to Zandvoort and Holland, which is obviously going to be a very pro Max Verstappen track. They're saying that they're going to be making amends. They're looking at every possible opportunity, but we'll see how Formula One ends up handling this, because if you're able to get half points for 2 laps, I mean, fans should be at least able to get half of their money back at the same time. I mean, realistically, for their tickets, fans got to see Friday practice, Saturday practice, qualifying. So, I don't think that it should be a complete return, but I mean, there's got to be some gesture, some goodwill that, the track and the series say, like, we want to keep people. I mean, there were heart-wrenching stories of people who, spent more than their monthly rent to go to their first ever race. They spent, their vacation to go to this place. They, they drove, took train, they did everything that, they kind of put their life on hold. And this is what ended up happening, which is unfortunate, but it's a slap in the face to hear, people celebrating on the podium to see, that Formula One in their discretion said that this was a race. I mean, I really hope that common sense kicks in here.
So Colin, in that moment, if you were in charge, how would you have liked to see that handled? As far as the fans, the racers involved, all the build up, how would you approach it? Just shut it right down, full refunds, and we move on to the next race, or and then consider the racers as well. They're trying to get the points and keep moving up the standings.
Yeah, I mean, I have an opinion for sure that first of all, not being there makes it really tough to second guess. But from all the reports that came out, there was no communication. There was nothing that came from the track or the series to say, other than the race is over, go home, to give some indication of what could happen in that scenario. Um, if you keep communication open with your fans, it makes life a lot easier. Even, to post something on social media to to let the word spread from anyone that was checking up. I can see it from multiple standpoints. For the race venue, they've spent a considerable amount of money. These races are not free. All these tracks that host Formula One, that host IndyCar, that host even our NASCAR Pinty series, they spend considerable amounts of money to get the series to go there. It's a big expense, and you have to put all the infrastructure in place. You have to accommodate all these teams. So from the track standpoint, to say they've spent all the money, they need to recover something for that. I can't object to that. But from a fan standpoint, you can't say we gave you the value for what you spent. So, I mean, I would not, I wouldn't be asking for full refund, but some kind of partial refund and some kind of credit would probably go a long way to securing some of the fan, fan supporter to kind of soften the impact of these things. I mean, we did our race on the weekend at Mirabel. NASCAR in their discretion, we went through a bit of a similar situation. We had rain on Saturday in the road course race. We're equipped with rain tires. We stopped the race, put the rain tires on, and kept going. The fans didn't leave, which was really awesome to see. But the next day we were supposed to do the two races at Chaudière. NASCAR saw that the forecast was not good and it didn't look like it was going to change. So instead of asking our teams to make the 7 or 8 hour return trip from Montreal to get up there, they just preemptively postponed the race. That was a very forward thinking decision. Now the flip side is we're going to be traveling 5 weekends in a row, but for the there's obviously going to be people who were able to go to the race on last Sunday, but they won't be able to go on the 18th when we come back. But that's just part of the deal. I mean, these are weather sensitive events. We can't run in the rain, and that when you get a ticket for an oval race. But there's always a couple of different ways. No matter what you do, you're not going to make everyone happy, though.
Colin, that's the Joyce for the CanTorque Race Report, and let's continue down that road with this Circuit ICAR race. And it was, as you mentioned, a bit dry and wet, and Lacroix ends up getting his win. But when you qualify in one set of like weather, and then the race is evolves into something else, how much is that a challenge for both the drivers and the teams that are trying to get their race cars set up for setup A, and all of a sudden it turns to setup B?
It's it's indescribably difficult. Racing in the rain is never easy, no matter how you do it. When if you're racing in the rain, or you suspect you're racing in the rain, you can put a setup in the car that really accommodates that. We, as an example, we were running in second place in the dry with no problem keeping up with Lacroix in the first half of the race. It was him, then us. I think Kevin was pushing pretty hard where we were able to save, because I'm spotting for Alex. I'm also watching, the other cars and how they perform. Kevin was locking up the brakes in turn one. We could see he was kind of losing, he would lose control from time to time. He was really pushing, and that's not a surprise. Kevin's a very aggressive driver. When we stopped to put the rain tires on, we could not even come close. We were actually really, really close to going a lap down once we went to the rain setup. And we think we know what Kevin did. I'm not going to mention what we think, because it looks like on Sunday and at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, we have a chance of rain. So we're going to probably try and copy what they did. They had their car set up so that they could run in the wet or the dry. They gave themselves that option, and we're going to look at doing the same thing as well. But in the course of the first 35 laps, Alex didn't forget how to drive a car, but again, he couldn't keep up. We were nowhere, and we had to fight mid pack and backpack cars. We got spun by one driver on the opening lap. We dropped from second to basically the last car on the lead lap. We had to overcome lap cars, and it was a fight. Like, Alex is really, really good in the rain, and it took everything. So yeah, that's a super, super difficult transition. Congratulations to Lacroix though, because those guys, they had it figured out. He drove another great race. I mean, he's really got his head on straight this year, and it seems like they've got a pretty good package. We're coming up to a few of our favorite tracks here at Canadian Tire. We'll see how the things shake out. Hopefully we get one dry race though.
Yeah, you definitely want some. Otherwise, it's just a challenge. We saw it. Too much rain isn't good. It's not safe, and it's not really necessarily as exciting because you can't get the racers to show their high level of skill all the time, which is I think ultimately at the end of the day what people like to see. Quickly, the NASCAR playoffs get going. We've discussed this every time. I don't know if there's a way necessarily to make it better, right? Just unless you were going to reduce it to only have those cars in it. And I understand why you don't, because of finances and sponsorships from everyone else. But do you think there'd be something like you see golf's playoffs, Collins, where you get into that final weekend and you had? Do you think you would ever start a NASCAR race, like, I don't know, giving grid spots, automatically start spots to certain guys? Would that entice it a little bit more, do you think?
I don't know. I just hate the whole thing. That's not a secret. PGA playoffs, if you don't make the cut at the end of the year, you are not competing with the other, FedEx playoff competitors. And if you don't make the cut after round one, or after event one, you don't move to event two. They cut it down until there's, a small group that goes to East Lake, and that's the way it is. The qualification for making the NASCAR playoffs doesn't make sense to me. You win and you're guaranteed a position, and then the people who don't win fill out the remaining 16 spots. Putting Daytona as the last qualification for these. I mean, Daytona was another disaster. I mean, between F1 and NASCAR, they absolutely stunk up the world, in my opinion. Maybe fans still like watching this. Maybe people love seeing the crashes. I don't, because I still see people that are at the wheel and they have to go home to their families. And, these teams spend, like, the amount of race car damage that was created at Daytona on Sunday is in the multiple millions of dollars, and asking teams to spend that much where that, over half that field is going away on the back of a wrecker is just, it's it's really disappointing to me. But again, I'm not the only person who watches racing, and people seem to still like the restrictor plate to the tapered spacer races. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority, and this is what people want to see.
And lastly, the weather. Yeah, I know it's been Pinty's challenging, but the Carter series ends on, I guess, a sad note because you guys weren't able to get the final race due to rain last night.
Yeah, I mean, overall we had a pretty good season this year. For some reason, it was way more, crash fest. We lost a lot of carts. People had a lot of damage. The incidents on track were much higher this year. I'm not sure if it's because we had newer drivers joining us, or if people are taking their club racing a little bit more seriously. But at the end of the year, we had repeat champion in our 397 category with Jared Freeston. This is 4 in a row for him, and in our category, newcomer Damon Shellamy. Damon has really busted his backside, getting into a lot better shape. I had a chance up until I missed a few races, and that's not an excuse. Damon just flat beat me this year. But yeah, first time champion there out of the Shellamy household. So, we're Damon and I hopefully have a few more years of fighting between us. Already, I just got out of the gym about an hour before we got here, and I'm already starting to work on 2022. So, if I'm gonna keep up with this young kid, I've got to make a lot of gravy over the winter.
Well, good on it. Good luck. Get some mashed potatoes mixed in, and you'll have no problem. Paul, always good to catch up with you, man. Appreciate your time.
All right, boys. Thanks a lot.
So, the race.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, of course, Connor.
How's the new place?